Welcome back to the Tool World Podcast. I'm your host, David Jew, and I'm here with Master Jew.
How's it going there, Mr. Jew?
It's going okay. All right, now this last week was quite, well, I've noticed this always, but, I noticed that a lot of students do not rotate the fist sometimes.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter. It could be a punch. Maybe they have the palm up first, and then it kind of rotates too early, and then it comes out, right?
Kind of like a jab.
Kind of like a jab. You see that with like guarding block. The hand's already pre-rotated and it comes across. And it could still be fast.
Right.
It could still be sharp. But I was telling them, I was like, well, yeah, you might still win in a competition, even with that. But you can tell. You can tell that there's lack of rotation in the hand. And there are different rotations for different types of techniques. But they all still should rotate. Well, okay, I shouldn't say all, with some exceptions. Because let's start with punching, striking, and thrusting, and then you have some other ones here too, right? And so what is the type of rotation that we have for these techniques?
That's a good question. I think that's all classified in the attacking tools with the hand. So like you said, punching, striking, thrusting, and then you have pressing and breaking.
Okay.
We don't normally talk about that particular because we don't see that in patterns as much. But we do see punching, striking, and thrusting.
Yeah.
And those are the common ones.
Right.
So you said, do the hands rotate or do they not? Or rarely do they not rotate? I think mostly the hands rotate for a reason, and that comes from the intermediate position where you're more at the relaxed position, and then when you execute these techniques. But the definition of punching is full twisted attacking motion at the moment of impact. So if I'm punching, let's say my palm would be facing towards the heaven. When I hit my target, the palm is still facing towards the heaven, and then I rotate it, and this will help cause that internal damage. That's the idea, right? So that's punching. Striking is minimal twisted attacking tool, kind of like a outward knife hand strike. So your hands cross, it's slightly bent, and then at the moment of impact, there's a slight twist to it. And same with the back fist strike. There's a slight twist to the attacking tool. Thrusting is no twist to the attacking tool so that it can cut to the vital area. Meaning that if I was going to poke someone in the eye with a flat fingertip thrust, at the point it hits the eye, it's just going to thrust in.
Okay.
However, before that, my hand might be relaxed and it might be in my shoulder line. And so it's coming out, but it's still got to twist to that position. So at the moment of impact, it's got to be flat and then thrust in. So there is a rotation from the beginning to the end. It's just that when it reaches its target, it is no longer twisting.
Right. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what would happen if you did a punch and you rotated too early?
Then it's like a jab in boxing, right? It won't create that internal damage.
Okay.
So punching is to create internal damage. Like if I was, I always kind of bring this one up. I think it's kind of cool, in Dangun, you punch a high punch. What's so cool about that? You give them a bloody nose.
Yes.
Well, if you did not twist it, more like a jab, you would give them that bloody nose.
Right.
But what do I really want to do is I want to create energy to the brain. What I would have to do is punch. That's the idea.
Okay.
When I hit my target, I deliver the energy and it goes towards the internal part of the body.
So do all techniques have a twist to it? Like, let's say you're doing high elbow strike, like in Jungun. Is that the right terminology?
I think your elbow, okay, so it's just really interesting because it's not exactly the same when we're talking about these ideas. What we just talked about is mostly the hand techniques. And
right,
the elbow
hand,
strike
punching.
is different though.
Oh, okay.
You see, so you have elbow strikes, front elbow strikes, upward elbow strikes, high elbow strikes, and then you have like side elbow thrust, back elbow thrust, twin side elbow thrust. And so when you look at that, the twisting is not as a big a deal. I think it's the attacking tool. So when you look at front elbow strike, it's, how do you describe that in those that are listening to the podcast? It's closer to the front of the end of the elbow.
Yeah.
And when you think about the thrusting, it's actually more like the tip of the elbow.
Right.
Because thrusting is to cut to or penetrate to the vital area.
Okay.
Makes
Well,
sense.
okay, that
Things
does
that make you go,
make sense. Yes. So now the question is the rotation. So you said we talked about the hand rotation. How about elbow rotation?
minimal. There's not a lot. And
Right.
when you think about striking, remember the hand technique, it's minimal.
But it still
Twist.
rotates.
I mean,
right?
you're going to have, it's kind of like the fist rotating. So if people that are watching this,
Yeah.
the fist is going to rotate, and so it's going to go down. But if I just did that and you look at the tool, does it rotate a little bit? Ooh,
a little bit. I mean,
little
the
bit.
bone kind of moves.
Kind of,
and
yeah.
Things like
but
that.
it's not quite exactly the same.
Yeah.
That brings up another question about this twisting idea. W-shaped block. Some instructor, if you look at some instructors, they have their hands up in a W-shaped block, and they don't do twisting of the rotation. They just use hip rotation. So the arms kind of stays in the same place, and then they execute the twisting. I don't teach it that way because I think it violates one of the training secrets of Taekwondo, and that is elbows and knees should be slightly bent. Basically, that idea is that your body should be relaxed. So only at the point of contact does it create that W-shaped block. And so I teach it where as I execute the techniques, my hands would actually rotate
Yeah.
and my hip would rotate.
Okay, so let's move on to pressing and breaking. What would pressing be?
Well, that's kind of like an arm bar.
Okay.
So you're pressing, right?
Yeah.
And then the breaking obviously is breaking it.
Yeah.
So I can control them or I
Right.
can destroy them.
So these are all attacking type of movements. How about defending movements? Do we have the same?
Rotation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so why do we rotate the hands specifically? The hand rotation is to help create speed. And speed is key to power. 1/2 times mass times velocity squared. And so the rotation part is to help create speed. So you should rotate.
But does it matter?
Unless you're like doing a push,
Yeah.
right?
Does
Then
it
you don't
matter
need
as
to do
much
that.
like?
Side pushing kick, there's not really that rotation. Side piercing kick is that piercing or
But those
the
are-
attacking tools
Right.
rotating.
But like for like blocking techniques, do you still need to full rotation every time,
Well,
or is it not as defined?
no, I think in generally it rotates, and the reason why it rotates is that intermediate hand position. When you go from one movement to the next, again, your body should be relaxed. It's a good example would be like if I was in a left walking stance, my arm is extended, and I just step forward and I punch. Some martial artists kind of do that. They just step forward and punch. But that seems crazy. You wouldn't do that in real life.
Yeah.
If I was, let's say I punch, I always kind of think of like patterns. You see the technique, it's like a Photoshop of that particular movement. You move on to the next movement. Well, I wouldn't hold it out there to step forward and punch. Well, I guess I could. But I would relax.
Yeah.
And then I would wind it up and do the next technique. But it's because of that relaxation, my hand might be, let's say, around the shoulder line area.
Yeah.
And I see that to be true like upward blocks or any of these blocks, and where you have this kind of a circular motion. Well, why do we have this circular motion? It's not necessarily because I'm trying to create speed, which can help, but it's my hand is in a certain position, again, like my shoulder line, and and I have to get it down to the, let's say the upward block. I have to get my hand down to this kind of low position so I can push it up. So that's why it kind of creates this circular motion.
Is that circular motion considered the rotation of the hand?
No, well, it is.
It is, yeah. But usually rotation, you're thinking like this kind of quick snap, but this one's kind of a bigger circle, right?
It's a bigger circle, but so I get it down here, but my palm still be down here, and then I come up, and then I flip it, and then I rotate it.
No.
We don't do that. So there is that the moment of impact, there is no rotation in that particular technique, right?
Okay. Yeah.
However, if I do a low side block with the outer forearm, my hand would be facing, let's say, towards me as it comes down. At the moment of impact, like a strike, there would be some kind of a twisting motion at that moment.
Okay.
And that twisting motion helps create that snap or that speed, which helps create power.
Well, we'll wrap it up there. And I think that was a good discussion on rotating the hands. Why do we do it?
Why?
As always, don't forget to leave a comment for us. Let us know anything else you
Hit
want us to
that smash
try.
button or hit that one?
No. You have to smash that like button.
You can't say that.
You can't hit that smash. Anyways, as always, don't forget to be safe.
Keep training.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Take one.